Hello everyone, welcome to this new episode of the Swift Academy podcast. Today I'm very happy to be for another time with Dave Poirier, who is an iOS security expert from Canada, from Quebec, and also Deya Elkhawaldeh, who is also an iOS developer and iOS security expert. Deya and Dave has working, I think, for 2 years to write very important book about iOS security. We'll speak with him about this. And also, I have the pleasure to work with Dave Poirier to write a book, also Unpacked, about AI-driven Swift architecture. And today, I'm very happy for this last episode of the Swift Academy podcast to be with Dave and Deya. Hello, Dave and Deya.
Hi. Pretty happy to be here.
Yes.
Hi, Oleg.
Hi, Deya. Hi, Dave. Thank you. Today, it's the last episode, and we chose to speak about iOS security, especially in 2026, with a lot of changes that we have now about iOS security, with the coming of the AI revolution, if you can say the AI revolution, with a lot of LLMs, SLMs, VLMs that come everywhere. Using LLMs now with iOS, with related to subject, related to security, I think it's the moment to speak about this. I think that you are one of the most developers that have knowledge about iOS security since you wrote the book Unpacked about this defensive. We'll speak about the book. And that's my question. I come to the first question that we have. What is the most shocking issues or security mistake that you have seen now in production iOS app in 2026 or maybe before in 2025?
Well,
Dave.
since it's your last podcast, I'll start with a 2-for-1. How's that?
Yeah.
The first one is it's a multinational corporation that was using the iOS app to scan passports of people using the app. And then they were just uploading the image of the passport unencrypted over unsecured connection with no data validation or hashing. I mean, like trifecta of things not to do. The second example would be an app that was HIPAA certified for doctors in hospitals to view patient records. And the app was logging to the device and to cloud-based logging the pins that the doctors were entering to unlock their device, the patient's names, and the medical conditions. I mean, you can't talk about more private data than this. And for this to be HIPAA certified, using doctors in production, to me, it's like mind blown. And same thing for the passport. Like, I mean, you talk about identity theft and stuff like that. Passports are one of the most preferred document for identity theft. And you send that unencrypted, no hashing, no logging, no visible access logs. The worst part is that the entire staff could actually go and retrieve the passports after the fact, view them, print them, no rate limitation. Like if you wanted, you could go and fetch like 2,000 passports in one day and nobody would raise an alarm anywhere that you're doing this. And if the supervisor goes and try to see who accessed the logs, there's no administrator side view of who accessed the logs or how many logs a given person, like how many passports they viewed that day. Like nothing was like it was logged. It was hidden somewhere on Amazon cloud logging entries or database, but nothing visible to the staff or the supervisors. So no one has anything that they actually can do. And because there's no automated alerts, nobody will ever know unless there's an inquiry and then you dig into the logs, but that's after the fact. It's like way too late. So really there's no way to catch an employee in the fact other than just sitting behind him all day and just watching how many passports they open every day. So those are by far the two worst cases I've seen. I mean, I've seen tons of stuff over the years, but those two really stuck with me. And in both cases, it was the management that was the issue. The developers knew about the issues. They raised it up to management and management was like, we accept the risk. Like, and when I see that, I can't live with this. There's no way I'm putting my name on the system like that. And once management says we accept the risk and we're not going to change it, I'm like, bye, I'm gone. This isn't for me. This is not the level of security I want to do. So bye.
Maybe because I'm very, very surprised about this because especially in this kind of airport, the security is kind of, you need to have this kind of security. And maybe they didn't think about that because there is the company that working to develop the application didn't have this knowledge about security, or maybe they didn't in their, if you can, in their tickets created by products owner, by PM, etc. They didn't think about this.
Yeah, I think in those cases, what happened is they probably started it as a proof of concept. Like
Mhm.
we just want to prove that it's possible to do. So no security we can skip because it's just a proof of concept. And then somebody said, hey, we really like this. Let's put it in production. And then management was like, okay, well, it's in production now. We have people using it. And then somebody says we should do this because it's not secure. And they're asking, okay, how much will it cost to make this secure? And then people are made give estimate, and then the review. Okay, the mobile side will maybe cost, I don't know, 2 weeks of development, and the server side will cost 3 weeks of development. The QA, the deployment, and this and that. And then they add up all the time that everybody spends, and it's like $300,000 or $600,000 of software development. And they're like, well, if it's that much, and it costs me only $200,000 per year to have insurance, what's the point of doing software development? Let's just pay the insurance and be done with it. So I think this is what happened in both of those cases. People just decided to accept the risk because it's cheaper to just buy insurance than actually doing the software development.
Great, Deya. Deya, what do you think? Have you seen something similar or different? We have two examples from Dave. I think that you have maybe
Yeah,
another. Yes.
I know a few examples, but yeah, it's a general theme. Like there's a tendency from teams in general to take security as a secondary concern. So generally, you'll see people care more about architecture, maintainability, performance, concurrency, and of course the user experience, the UI. So they put maybe some teams like they put the server is where the real security happens, which is a misconception, a common misconception. So yeah, it's like a general mindset that all of the security, most of the security labor or focus will be on, let's say, the backend or the servers.
Yes, I think that a lot of developers, iOS developer, we have this maybe know the sufficient knowledge about iOS security and iOS issues. When you try to join a team that working for an iOS application, you need this kind of profiles, if you can say it, profile relating to iOS security. But the number of developers that have his knowledge, I think we didn't have a lot of numbers of developers that have. We have some knowledge. We know that we use keychain. We know that we need to not user defined. I think that we have the basics. And when you have the basics, in some cases, it's not sufficient to understand, because for me, I think that the developer should also be implicated when we try to create the tickets use cases. If the developers have this knowledge, like Dave and you can, okay, we need to make this. We have this problem with security. If you continue, even for the proof of concept. What do you think?
Well, it's true that not all developers have the knowledge. That's from the get-go. And very often the knowledgeable developers are brought in later. And especially if you have a proof of concept, you may have a junior developer. You say to this junior developer, can you create this proof of concept for me? And he works with a very small team, maybe just by himself or with one other developer on the back end side to create something that just works. So they don't have the knowledge. They just don't know what they need to protect. The second thing is, proof of concept are usually also time bound. So you don't have a lot of time. Like the developer says, hey, you have a month to work on this. And if you do security properly, it may take 3 months because you have to implement logging, you have to build roles-based access control, permission tracking, maybe alerting, all that kind of stuff. Like every one of those layers, event encryption, end-to-end encryption, stuff like that, requires some time. And if you have a proof of concept with a very limited delivery window, you're going to skip over this voluntarily just to be able to prove that there's like the app is usable, or you test the user experience much more than you test the security from the get-go. So I think this is mostly what happens. And even if people are knowledgeable, they will still go through like making sure the delivery is on time, because you may have the most secure software. If you're not able to deliver on time and a competitor release before you, or by the time you are ready to deliver, it costs 5 times more, maybe you just won't deliver at all and the company will fail. So very often developers and management teams will take the decision to take shortcut, prove that the solution is there, and then try to deal with security after the fact. It's just market dynamics.
Yes. I think there is a constraint, if we can say it, about budgets, about time, and also to have good developers that have knowledge about security and iOS. I think that we have a few junior developers who have this knowledge, because it takes time, years, to have this knowledge to work, even in a company that work for security. So it's very important, because if you work on company like you, Dave, on work that daily time with security issues, etc., related to iOS security, mobile security in general, you are usually you have this knowledge about what attackers can do, and also you think about the different use cases. I think also we have a problem because we have a lot of confidence to Apple. We think that the platform it's by default secure. I think maybe it's a false assumption. What do you think, Dick?
Well, Apple does a really good marketing job at making sure people believe their platform is safe. And to be fair,
Okay.
it's relatively safe. Like if you think about especially if you enable lockdown mode, and Apple says like if you're worried about security, you should enable lockdown mode. And lockdown mode, to the best of my knowledge, hasn't been broken yet. So they've done a really, really, really good job. If you want your device to be secure, you enable lockdown mode, and then your device is going to be secure. It's going to prevent you from doing some stuff, which is great, or maybe a problem sometime. But if you really are worried about security, you enable lockdown mode, you're good to go. But if you don't enable lockdown mode, then you have to start asking yourself question, is my device really secure? And usually the answer is yes, but not really. And this is where, since most users don't use their device in lockdown mode, that means most users are also susceptible to attacks. We've seen that lately with Corona, and Dark Sword, the two latest attacks that were revealed or discovered. All you needed was a guy opening a website, and boom, your device was taken over, and they were able to extract log, exfiltrate your picture, your messages, your chat history, all of that, like just by visiting a website. But that would not have happened if lockdown mode was enabled. And the other thing is, developers also don't really understand that some type of information is okay to store or share in some types of condition, and sometimes it isn't. Take GPS coordinate, for example. If I create an app, which I did for the city of Winnipeg in Manitoba, to track the garbage cans, the status of the garbage cans. Are they broken? Are they in good conditions? Am I picking them up today? Is it on the side of the street? Whatever. You are tracking the GPS coordinate of where the truck is, and it scans the garbage. If there's a broken cover or something like that, it just scans the cover and says broken cover. That GPS coordinate gets tagged with the ticket and picture and gets sent to the cloud. It's a garbage can. Do we really give a crap about like the coordinate of a garbage can and knowing that the cover needs to be replaced? Probably not. But if it's the GPS coordinate of missile launchers for the military, the security layer of that same GPS coordinate is significantly more important. You probably don't want that to be distributed or easily available. So we have to always analyze the bigger scope where we are. Talk to the privacy officers, talk to management, really understand like, is that piece of information critical for me to protect or not in our use case, and not just make an assumption. Oh, I created the jogging app and it's safe. Well, if the jogging app is being used by the secret services of the president and they just happen to run with the president every morning, then suddenly we know where the president is every morning. We can track him on the map, which is pretty bad. And that actually happened. We had some of the secret services of the US president that were traveling, and they had the jogging app that they were using. And suddenly we knew where the president was in the sky, in the ground, where they landed. Everybody could track them. And that was not because the president was not sharing his location, but the secret service members had a jogging app installed on their phone that was actually tracking them. So stuff like that. I mean, so it's not because your app seems it's a jogging app, I don't need to try to make it secure. Yeah, sure, the Secret Service should probably have done a better job at making sure they don't have that app installed. But at the same time, if the app had been safe and not sharing that location, then it would not have occurred either. So there's that whole concept, like think outside the box and just by default make things secure is pretty better than just say, I don't need to make it secure because it doesn't matter.
Great. I think that you resume that maybe we need to have this kind of defensive mentality against attacks. And I guess that when you write the book with the think about how we can secure and how we have this kind of defensive culture against attacks, which is very important to the community to understand. First of all, what kind of attacks that we can have. And also, maybe you are in the preventive idea, not when the problem comes, you need to make reaction. We are in the preventive, and which is very important to have this idea to be preventive, not to be reactionary concept to the problem. Yes, and I think that it was the most important reason that you wrote the book with Deya. If someone maybe read the books now and still chip and secure app, what do you think they can likely misunderstood or ignore and they find inside the book?
Yeah, I think part of what I just explained, like the concept of understanding what data and like understanding how your data is used is really well explained in the first part of the book. We really go into multiple examples of like what is data, at what point does a GPS coordinate becomes problematic. For example, if you just have one, it's not doesn't mean anything. But then if you have like hundreds of GPS coordinates, then you are suddenly able to track a person over time. That stuff is explained in the book, so we go into it significantly. We also cover different type of data, like in different contexts. So in the book, we really go over this. Generally, if an app is a developer is uncertain about if they should just be aware of what they're working on. You join a team, you don't know what the hell you're doing, you don't know what the data is, you don't know what it represents. Instead of just assuming that it's fine for you to do things a certain way, you should have that curious mindset and say, what am I working at? What am I working with? Is there data privacy officers? In any medium scales or large scale enterprise, there's always going to be a data privacy officer that is named. We know that this person is responsible for making sure that the data is properly handled. Find your data privacy officer, have a chat with him or with your supervisor, management, other team. But if your team is you, which can happen sometimes, the team of one, reach out to management and just ask, like, do I need to protect this data? Is it secure? If we have a collection of that, does that the level of security should normally increase by one, but what does it mean? And how far do we want to push it? Speaking to your management is part of a developer's responsibility, understanding the security context that I need to put in place. And that's also covered in the book. And if your management just says, don't worry about it, we just accept the risk, might not be a bad idea to look elsewhere.
Yes, it's. I think it's a problem of culture, and also a problem of what the company. As you said, if we are in the military domains, security is everywhere. Security is everywhere, every layers, and I think that you learn when you work with this kind of domains because security is everywhere.
Exactly.
But if you work, I don't know, in maybe will have a problem in e-commerce application. I think that you will have faith on backend, not on the application. Fake on backend, everything is secure on backend. You have a lot of layers of security, and you said, okay, but I don't care about security on the app. Maybe you try to check that you don't have password login that are recorded or registered on the device, and everything maybe it's recorded or registered on the keychain, but you know that there is kind of techniques that exist to engineering, reverse engineering of this application, but they don't care. But for the military, for some domains, military, aerospatial domains, this kind of domains, I think that to work with as an iOS developer with this kind of application, you need to have certain level in iOS
Well,
security.
to be fair, even a social network app, people share all kind of stuff all the time. So we should probably take care of making sure those apps are safe as well.
Yes, 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 yes. Especially against some kind of projects that you know. Okay, maybe let's switch to another perspective. It's the hacker or the attacker perspective. If you are now a hacker and you try to attack an iOS application, where would you start?
So we are generally helping developers to make attackers' life harder. So we put obstacles to attackers. But if you want to think like an attacker or something, I guess
Okay.
that an attacker will usually start with low-hanging fruits.
Okay.
They're not going to begin with the sophisticated zero-day or complex exploit chain or something, unless
Okay.
the target is that level of work, that effort. So they will first look for simple mistakes like sensitive data in logs, some something like that.
Password.
Tokens stored insecurely, weak or local storage, hard-coded secrets, poor certificate validation, exposed debug features, broken deep links, etc. Like APIs that trust the client too much. A lot of other stuff they will have on their list to like the low hanging fruits. They of course maybe they will inspect the binary itself,
Okay.
and of course observe the network traffic. Maybe this is one of the first things that they will target. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a
Okay, I
long list.
understand. It's the same. I think that the list of attacks that we already discovered with the Dave on the series last year about this different techniques, it didn't change. Maybe we'll speak after about how change with AI, with LLMs, if things changed. I think that we will discuss with this. But what do you think, Dave, about how would you defend against that? I know that we discussed it last year about this, but there is the same techniques to defend the same problems with the same techniques, or already after 1 year things changed.
Well, the only thing that changes is how fast and how easy it is to attack. Because with the LLM and all that, so we're gonna deal with that. We can chat about this later. From the defending against attackers, it's pretty much the same thing as before. Like, the weakest layer in most mobile architecture that I've seen, right from the get-go, is the data storage layer. People assume that because the data is stored in my app container, it's safe. We've seen with Corona and Dark Sword, the two most modern attacks, that once the device is breached, they were able to extract the entire chat history of the iPhone. So they are able to access your entire storage layer. So if you locally don't store the data securely, like encrypt your database, encrypt your logs, use the keychain, like if you use your user default, for example, to store your passwords or your tokens, that stuff is gone. Like the moment Corona or Dark Sword gets into your phone, like that stuff is extracted, man. That's it. Bye-bye. So I think developers just don't understand and don't put enough emphasis on the storage layer by far. They just assume that it's stored on a device that must be safe.
And how do you think now that the techniques about reverse engineering in production application, developer, especially as you said, try to discover what is storage in the app, which is the most important thing. The techniques related to reverse engineering now, with especially the using with the AI LLMs, it changed compared to 2 years ago.
Definitely. It's night and day. 2 years ago, you had to know how to hack a device. Like you had to learn how to reverse engineer. You had to learn how to do buffer overflows. You had to learn all of this stuff. With AI now, it's deceptively simple. You install the Ghidra, you install Radare, and then you install the MCP, and you say, Claude, I want you to test the security of this app. And you let the thing figure it out. You say, for example, I want to extract the password that is stored in this app, and then it's going to reverse engineer, it's going to find where password could potentially be stored, it's going to look at the variable name function, and it's going to keep iterating until eventually it finds the password. What was your knowledge? Find the password in this app, enter. I mean, the barrier of entry for attacker is significantly lower than it was before. I think the landscape completely changed in the last 2 years. What you thought was what an attacker had to go through in order to break your app today is ridiculously more simple.
And for jailbreak, what do you think? People always using jailbreak and the detection that the application is jailbreaked. Still, people discuss about jailbreaking or not? Because I think
jailbreak is way overblown.
Okay.
Years ago, that like when the first iPhones came out, the jailbreaks were probably the first thing that we thought about as, okay, the user is going to jailbreak their device and therefore security layers are gone. But I think this is no longer the case. First, it's extremely difficult to find a modern jailbreak for example, for iOS 26. I don't think there's one that exists yet. So finding jailbreaks is hard and complicated and usually requires the user's knowledge and voluntary thing. But I think the biggest concern is your device being compromised. You don't know what you're doing. You just go and visit the website, boom, you're hacked. Or they just have your phone number and they send you like an invisible text message that has an attachment that then hacks your phone and gets full remote control of it. Things like Pegasus and Corona, Dark Sword, all these types of attacks are all similar. We should not think about security about jailbreak. I think we should think in security of terms of compromise.
Okay.
What happens if my device is compromised? So it's not security theater. Some people think it's just like, oh, we need to like be compliant with SOC 2 compliance. We need to input security, and it's just like checkbox. I think it's much more than that. I think we should definitely not necessarily look if the debugger attached or if the device is secure to block the app, but more to detect whether or not something is suspicious and flag it accordingly. For example, if you have a banking app, maybe allow the banking transaction to go through, but flag it as suspicious. And then maybe the bank will call the user, say, have you done this transaction? Yes or no? So stuff like that. Because the first thing, if you block an attacker, let's say you try to detect jailbreak or compromise, and your first thing is, I'm going to block the attacker. Well, if the attacker is really going for your app and they see you like crashing the app or displaying an error code when you reach there, they're just going to be able to know exactly which part of the code was triggered to crash the app or block or display that alert. And then they're going to focus specifically on what condition they need to fix in the app in order to bypass that security mark. So you're essentially putting a big red flag saying, hey, my security is right here. What you want is to be as non-obvious as possible. When you detect that something is wrong, flag it along, but let the things go through as normally as possible, or return some fake data in worst case. But you don't want to let the attacker know that you're onto him. You want to track what they're doing. You want to detect and flag and be able to reverse those transactions easily. Blocking is the simplest defense for an attacker to bypass. So definitely, it's not security theater. You have to do it, but you have to do it in a way that is conductive to you investigating what is going on, potentially identifying those attackers, and learning how they attack your app as well. So gain as much knowledge, and then you're able to defend.
Deya, do you agree or you see it differently?
I mostly agree. Jailbreak detection is really important, but it's less relevant in 2026 than the past years. In the past years, like around 20 or something, 2020, and before that, it was really relevant. Yeah, but it's still really important because it can open permission for a lot of stuff that are very dangerous.
And you have this feeling that your iPhone is not the same because you jailbreak the iPhone. You have maybe it's this. You think that your iPhone is not the same like before jailbreaking, and this idea may influence your understanding. But as it's a problem of compromising. The most is compromise the iPhone, and jailbreaking. The idea of jailbreaking is not to compromise the iPhone. This is the main, and I think that jailbreaking it's not a problem. It's an idea that okay, it's not supported by Apple, but it's techniques to have application outside of Apple, and okay, some application that exist uh, um, with outside of the Apple Store can be a threat to our iPhone, but we need to be vigilant about this. Okay, we need to be vigilant. I have this idea, but especially in the air, if we can say. And I think with the AI, the attacker or the hacker, it will be augmented hackers. They know a lot of things. Junior, senior hacker, they have a lot of information. And I think that a hacker now attackers already using LLMs, and you know about this.
Oh yeah, they definitely are. Like you look at their X-Strike is a good example of a tool that you can just install and like boom, like you have a full suite of AI-powered tools that can attack and detect vulnerabilities. So assuming that an attacker doesn't have access to your source code, what they're going to do is they're going to try to decompile. They're going to clean up then once it's decompiled and they have the assembly code, they're going to clean up, assign names to function calls. They're going to summarize the what parts of the app does what. They're going to identify the crypto, the authentication paths, all of usually in the past, that was all done by hand. The attacker, the person doing the reverse engineering had to go and manually, okay, this function is probably this, and they assign a name, and then this function is probably this, and they go through this one bit at a time. But now you install R2AI or Radar A2, and it's MCP, or you install Ghidra and it's MCP, and then you just go in Cloud and say, I want to find a function that cracks this password, where that password is set. And again, you just press enter and it gets done. So I think, like we said, it lowered the barrier of entry significantly. And these apps are there. They exist. Like if you just do a quick Google search, or you even ask Cloud, hey, I want to find red team tools for attacking mobile or attacking website. And then Cloud will just list them all to you and give you URLs and pointer for go to the GitHub repo. AI is definitely, the attackers definitely have a lot of AI tools that are accessible. And that's not even thinking about do they need to jailbreak or get out of the sandbox of the AI? No, the AI will definitely tell you how to do this. But even then, the attackers have their own LLMs. They have their own version of DeepSeek. They have their own version of Kimi K2 that are fully trained on attack vectors and attack techniques. So they have access to pretty much anything they want.
Okay, I think that AI will replacing attackers, AI will replacing developers, because we spoke about what do you think? Maybe.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's no question that, I don't think AI will replace attacker, but I do think that attackers will 100% use AI. It's the same thing as software development.
Yes.
Right now, you cannot say AI is replacing all developers. Sure, you have vibe coding, but there's still a human behind the vibe coding that says the AI, I want you to do this. The AI doesn't create the app by itself. So same thing for the attackers. There's still a human behind the attack. that will guide the AI. I want you to try to attack this vector or attack this way, or I want you to target this specific app or this server. So I think they're still humans. But again, it's the barrier of entry that is really scary. Like you no longer need 5-6 years of training with the NSA or the FBI to be able to hack. You can just grab your tools, download them from the internet, and be ready to go in 20 minutes. Like,
okay, and the content related to iOS security and security in general, generated by the AI, you find that is useful and there is no problem with the content, even for high-level seniority, because the question that will be asked by a junior iOS developer related to security, it's not the same like senior or an expert iOS security. I think that you asked a lot of questions to different LLMs. I know about that, but what do you think about the content generated, the steps, especially now with the skills? We know that we have skills files that you give to the LLM to produce quality of code, etc. Skills MCP and also the pre-trained LLM. The content related to iOS security, you find it very high level or not?
From my experience, the LLM is able to do security much better than the average software developer. Like if you think about but you have to say it. I want you to secure this data. I want you to like if you don't say anything, the AI will take the easiest path out. Like I want to create a grocery shopping list. It will just create a grocery shopping list. You'll have core data. You'll have this. You'll have that. You want to say, I want the user to authenticate. It's going to find a way to store the tokens. But if you don't say, I want you to secure or harden my app, it's not going to do it. So you have to know and you have to prompt for it. Would I trust 100% what the AI and LLM comes up to? Probably not, the same way as I don't trust it to do software development on its own. You do have to double check. You do have to know. If you don't know, you should ask, reach out, or buy a book that talks about security and iOS security through defensive techniques on the Amazon store or Pact. Thank you. But that said, I would trust the AI more than a junior developer just coming into the job. But you do have to ask specifically to secure or test or validate. For example, if you just go in on your source code and say ask to the AI, validate my entire source code against the OWASP MASVS. It will do it, and it will find tons of stuff, most likely, and it will find like pretty good stuff. And then you take that and say, launch that into an adversarial review, and boom, you got like super high quality results. Most of the false positives are eliminated. So you're going to get really, really good validation out of the AI and the LLM layer. Really, really good. But again, you have to ask. If you don't know what OWASP is and you don't know what the MASVS is, then you're pretty much screwed. And if you don't ask about securing your app or ask for the extra validation, or you don't ask for the adversarial review, you're going to get the junk that is first generated out of the AI, out of the box.
You need to read, because you can't ask if you have this ability to read books, to be with experts. But a lot of developers have this kind of doubts about if after 20 years, I don't know, 10 years, this kind of expert didn't exist, how we can have developers that working with AI, or maybe we have this kind of general LLM that do everything. At this moment, we will be fired.
Well, hopefully we don't get there. I'm going to switch that back to you, because we talked about developers, junior developers and all that, right? What would be the most common mistakes you think developers make?
Okay, so there are a lot of the most common mistakes, like using a keychain or secure enclave, thinking that it will automatically make design secure. So these technologies are strong by themselves, but if you abuse them, like use them in the wrong way, they will not provide levels of security that is needed.
Okay.
The moment that we understand the threat model first, then choose the right platform feature. Like some people will automatically go to keychain or secure enclave or biometrics or whatever, use them as magic labels. So the idea is that we use them intentionally for specific use cases.
Okay.
Sorry for the confusion for the last.
No problem. And if you have maybe, Dave, anything to add about the new any other techniques that we have, especially now with the AI and the evolution of using of AI, it's sufficient to have keychain, secure enclave, this kind of techniques now, because maybe the threats was involved now with the coming of the AI. new things. We have Mythos. What they do with Mythos, Anthropic, they discover things that exist already in the kernel of the Unix operating system that very brilliant minds didn't discover before. That
Yeah, for
maybe
sure. Yeah, there was recently an attack that like they figured out on Linux that affects all the Linux distribution for years, and that was discovered just because they had access to the source code and they launched a tool, the AI tool, and say, hey, find a hole or a buffer overflow attack, find a buffer overflow somewhere, and then find a way to use it or use it. And then so it resulted, I think it's 372 bytes that you just launch on any Linux distribution and you get root access. Which is pretty insane. So overall, using AI tools to automate the discovery process is definitely part of what the reality today. You need to have your automated tools. You need to do that. Maybe you could have in your Git push hook. So you do your commits, you do your work, but just as you are about to push to the server, have a pre-hook installed in your Git flow to run OWASP validation or security validation, just like a spot check to make sure you haven't missed anything. You can use the built-in command, like Cloud Code has a built-in command, like /security review,
Yes.
which takes your last commit and checks that there is no security issues with your last commit about how you store stuff. You can create your own command. For example, in my workflow, I have a /test command that I created, and it runs my SwiftLint. It builds my app, checks if there's new Xcode build warnings that have been added that were not there before. It then tries to run all the unit tests and the UI test automatically. So when I think I'm done, I just like /test, walk away from my computer, come back 10 minutes later, and boom, I got a little report about like everything that is whether or not stuff is done or not. It's part of the automation process. Like I don't expect my PR review or my other teammates to have to do that for me. I just let my AI tools do that for me. And then that gives me much faster feedback. And when my PR is finally ready, I can even attach to my PR, like, okay, the result of my security review. And then the other developer knows, okay, Dave has done his due diligence. He has run his tools. He has done his OWASP validation. He has done his SwiftLint. He's done everything. Here's the report. Everything that was run. Here's the finding that was found, like zero new warning added, zero SwiftLint validations, zero new issues found, 5 issues cleared. So all of that can be partially automated. It's part of your workflow. So if you use Cloud Code or you use an LLM or anything like that, 100%, you should install those commands or define your skills that you mentioned before, like add the skills, define a /command, define stuff, add a pre-hook that validates. Even in your CI/CD pipeline, you can have a validation step. Like you can install CodeRabbit, you can install various tools that is going to look at the quality of your code, compare it against a ticket. That stuff was not there 5 years ago, was not there 2 years ago. We now have the ability to have those tools, and we should use them. And I keep saying, like, when it comes to Cloud Code, if you count your tokens, and we discussed it a little bit in the book, right, about AI, to me, it's like maximizing the output and the quality of the code, not counting tokens. There's times when you want to optimize tokens and reduce your cost, but when it comes time to implement security or validation, to me, it's counting tokens the wrong directions. You should optimize and validate as much as possible. When I use my Cloud Max 20X Pro, I usually comes close to 75-80% of my max usage, but I mean, I need to work. I work it a lot. Like I have 2 sessions side by side, bouncing ideas back and forth, doing adversarial review, doing a bunch of stuff. And it's always constantly running. And if I run out of tokens, like an hour before the next reset, because there's like 5-hour blocks every time, that at least Cloud Code, the way it works, that gives you you have 5-hour blocks, you have daily blocks, you have weekly blocks, weekly limits. So normally I will run out of one 5-hour block, but I will not run out of my weekly block, or at least I haven't reached that anywhere, anytime, but maybe somebody will. But anyway, the point is you should really automate and have these hooks in your GitHub, in your workflow, those commands.
Yes, we also speak about this in chapter 8 of the AI-driven Swift architecture about governance, because all these steps also is related to security.
Creating those ADRs, those decision records, and
yes, and also with SonarQube, we have this ability to check security issues, and even with the using of what we call multi-agents and the team of agents that exist, we have this ability to check that every rules exist in SonarQube related to security rules, especially, and also other rules. It will be validated by the agent or the team agent or the iOS lead developer agents, not the human, but
go
the
check
agents.
the AI-driven Swift architecture book on the Amazon or Mac Store.
Yes, great. Now, maybe also speaking about what best practices you think that developers should have, and maybe it's misunderstood by developer. The best practice for your experience, Dave, that after this number of years, we have, okay, we need to, I think that we should have this for every applications. Every application that maybe they have kind of security threats or issues. We
I
should
may
have
even
this.
have contributed to that myth because you're talking about myth or best practices. I think one of the things that I first said in the past year was, well, you should do TLS spinning. And I was proven wrong. I mean, TLS spinning is important and you should do it. But the threat model of when you're doing TLS spinning, you're defending against a specific threat model. You're defending against network attacks, but you're not defending against attackers that are using FRIDA, objection, or like SSL kill switch, which normally will be able to like bypass your SSL security within 30 seconds. So if you focus on TLS spinning, your team's going to burn weeks implementing like pin rotation, certificate life cycles, outage risk for control, like stuff that will be essentially bypassed very, very easily by an attacker. So you should treat TLS spinning as just one layer of your defense in depth, like not all of it, but just like literally one layer. So what you really want is request signing. You want replay protection. You want server-side authorization. There's a concept called zero trust architecture, a really nice document created by the NSA years ago that covers all the different security mechanisms that you should be implementing side to side in your entire workflow end to end. But from the point of view of an iOS app, you really have to think about like, what am I protecting and who should I be delivering that information for? For example, normally when we talk about an iOS app, we think about, okay, I need to communicate to that API to upload that picture, or I need to send a passport to this server. So you're going to say, oh, I need to make sure that my TLS certificate between here and to the server is safe. But if the passport is not actually processed by the API server itself and it's sent on a like Amazon S3 cloud function for processing and storing, why would the server have access to the passport? That doesn't make sense. It should receive it, forward it along, and then the cloud function should be able to decrypt the password, the passport or the image or whatever, and then handle it. So we have to identify where is the end in our end-to-end encryption that we want to do, and then implement that end-to-end encryption. It may mean having 5 or 6 different public keys that we receive from different services in our public server. So our public server, like our API says, well, the passport service is here, the authentication service is here, and then you receive the public keys of those different services. And then when your app runs, you generate the encryption keys using HTTF, key diversion techniques. You use the public key of the server, your own private key, blah, blah, blah. Some magical numbers come up, and then you use that for encrypting the different parts. You can still communicate to your API and give the encrypted passport, but the API will not be able to decrypt it because a private key is held and only accessible from that service. So it's understanding the threat level, not just implement TLS spinning. My big myth was like, just implement TLS spinning and your communication will be safe. Big myth. Don't do that. I'm not saying don't do TLS spinning. I'm saying it should not be your primary go-to. You should really, really focus on understanding your entire threat landscape and what are the different parts of your infrastructure. How do they play together? Which part needs which piece of information? And how can I validate that this information really comes from there? If let's say you have a flight booking app, right? You want to book a flight and you want to give the flight number and a travel information to your app. Well, there's a service that will likely book that there, and then it will give that service information to an API, and your app will receive the information, the response back from the API. But that service that generated the booking should sign saying, this is your booking number. Like it should cryptographically sign that information and pass it along to the API, and the API pass the information and the signature along to the app, and the app is able to validate, okay, this is a real booking that I really received from the booking service. It was not intercepted or given to me by a hacker that was sitting on a server. Because that could happen, right? Let's say you're a general in the army and you need to travel to a specific location. You get your booking and then you take your airplane. It tells you to go to this place, take this flight number and go to a specific location. But that was manipulated by an attacker that then gives you a different flight number to a different place at a different time. And then suddenly they know they can expect you at this exact date and time. So stuff like that needs to be validated, needs to be signed. And again, it's just understanding your threat model. So the biggest myth, TLS spinning for me was my first one. And I'm guilty of even saying that to people before.
Okay, great. We have maybe to last section to speak about the future in the era of EI now. And my question is for Deya. What do you think that it will be kind of attacks that we can have maybe in 1 year? You have an idea, especially now with the AI, with the content that they validated great content that exists now. What kind of attacks, or it's predictable or not? What do you think?
So from what I think, most of the focus will be on attacks that speak of backend and databases, and of course it will touch mobile
Okay.
apps for sure. But yeah, as we know, it's a chain. If one of these items is broken, the whole chain will be broken. All of them are important. The first thing that will be attacked may not be the mobile itself. The thing that will be a big bounty for attackers will be,
Okay.
let's say, the database or whatever, or backend. But the nature of the attacks will be like more sophisticated, I guess.
Especially
Maybe
with the
maybe there will be other models that counter these attacks. Who knows? This is how I look at, in
And
my
Dave,
opinion.
I think that you in iVerify, you have a lot of conference about attacks related to AI. Just, last week, we have a conference about this. There is, especially for company with are working on security, topics related to security and AI, and the kind of attacks that we'll have in 1 year, 2 years, even in the next month. It's a very, very hot subject that people need to understand, especially in this kind of your company.
Personally, I'm a little bit more. I agree to a certain degree with Deya that we're gonna see more complex attacks, and as usual, the backend is always the golden. If you can attack the backend, then great, because you get access to all the users at once. So I think the backend will be the primary focus. But I also think that it will be almost impossible to imagine what's gonna happen.
Okay.
Like 2 years ago, LLM barely existed, or when they were used, they were barely able to get code without hallucinations in place. Since last December, things have dramatically changed. We can now use mostly code without any hallucinations. Code usually works on the first try or second try, and the AI has a validation loop and is able to do its own thing. It's the same thing for attack and security. Like Mythos, for example, you mentioned it earlier. 71 different vulnerabilities identified in Firefox in a week. Mind blown emoji. Just insane. What will happen in 2 years from now? If technology continues to go at the rate that it is, I got no freaking clue. I mean, the entire infrastructure could be totally blown apart, or it could be much more secure than it was before. Maybe in 2 years from now, AI, like security issues will be gone. I mean, it's a possibility. Maybe the tools will have evolved enough that you can just say, secure my code base, and it's able to find all the holes, patch them all automatically, and upload the fixed binary on the site. Maybe you'll say to an AI, here's my backend, here's my front end, here's all the components of my infrastructure, harden it. And then boom, the AI just goes through the entire thing, charges you $15,000 in tokens, and then your infrastructure is safe. That's a possibility. Will that happen? I got no clue. There's so many different things that could change. So I think it's a little bit of we do not know what's going to happen. It could be one completely the other. Maybe the Mythos will be somehow stolen by hackers before we have the time to secure all of the software, and they'll be able to get into everything, and suddenly the internet will explode. I just got no idea what's going to happen 2 or 3 years from now. I keep an open mind, but I think the outcome that is like, we still have to do the work right now until the AI gets to the point where it's able to secure your entire infrastructure. There needs to be people that know security. There needs to be people that knows how to use the AI. We need to combine the two, how to do security, how to use AI to do our security, or at least automate some parts of it. We need to understand it. So I think both books that we created right now, the AI-driven Swift architecture and the iOS security through defensive techniques, both of those books really combine well together to improve
To keep the craft.
the speed at which we're writing software and developing solutions, and the quality.
Yes, to keep the craft. This is the idea, to keep the craft, because it's important to have this, even for people that think that we didn't need the same number of developer, but we need great level skills of developers. This is the important thing. I think that AI will keep the good developers, great developers that have this knowledge, that are also adapted, and also try to have, because AI with LLMs give us a lot of content, of good contents. Now, especially with the last LLMs version of models, we see this. We begin with you, Dave, I think in August, writing the book. and things accelerated. The quality of the content, all those.
Honestly, Walid, how many times
Mm.
did you have to reread the same chapters? I think like 5,
Yes.
6
Yes.
times. Technology moves so freaking fast. I saw you were like, you asked me to review a chapter, and then like 2 weeks after I had to review it again. I was like, stop rewriting.
Really, it's very hard now to write a book, even related to AI, because things really are accelerated very fast, and we need to adapt to be adaptive with this. There is no choice, but we need also to use what LLMs and AI give to us, which is great. I think the most good knowledge, very fast knowledge that humanity that have created. I hope that we still created knowledge, because it's important that humanity still created knowledge.
I have one last
Uh,
question, yeah, before we close the podcast, because I can see the end
okay.
coming. Deya, when you contacted me the first time to write a book about security, you said, are you going to need about 2 or 3 months? Was
So
your
yeah,
scope of your understanding of security, was it bigger than you expected?
yeah, it was way larger than and it expanded more than that, longer time. So a lot of stuff was not available, let's say, on some big AI providers. So we need to do some experiments sometimes to see here and there. And Dave knows more. So yeah, so sometimes we did a lot of corrections here and there. So yeah, it's a really huge topic, and I guess for whoever like want to start with this topic, maybe they will underestimate it at first, but when they go deep, they will understand how it makes us think in a very reverse way. Like you want to think like, okay, you are developing an app, but you also want to prevent attackers. Think somehow like an attacker and assume bad intentions from attackers whenever with each line or each API call you do or each feature you create.
Great. Thank you, Dia and Dave. It was the last episode of the season 2 of Swift Academy podcast, and also it's very important to me to thank all the guests, like Michael Long, you, Dave, yeah, other Natalia also that give us a help in the book, Mark
John
Forret
Reed for the
and
preface.
John Reed. Yes, yes. Otherwise, I will have a great problem with John. John, very great developers, one of my legendary mentors for the community in TDD and testing. A lot of company. John, it's for me one of the great developers that I have. They give me the ability to speak with him, which really I appreciated 2 years ago. Other developers like Marek Forret, Pedro from Twist Company, Natalia also, Tim Condon from the server side, teams on Swift also, and Matt Masicot, also my friend from Spring EU, Mahmoud Ben Hassin, Tunisian developers. It's not related to iOS, but I invited him because it's a great developer with a lot of contribution to. Also, it's the lead developer for Spring EU and Spring Batch, sorry. And we are very honored to have this kind of Tunisian developers in a company in the high level of computer science.
Let's also
Other,
not forget our publisher, right, for both books. Pact Publishing,
yes, Pact
they
the
were great
publisher
at helping
also.
us along and getting that thing out the
Yeah,
door.
and others guests that I invited him in 2025 because season 2 was in 2025 and also in 2026. Hopefully, you have season 3 with the new things that come to WWDC 26. Hopefully, that we have new things related to EI, to MLX, because you know I love MLX
I know
foundation
you love
models.
MLX. That stuff is not for me, but I know you love it.
Yes. And hopefully that we have a great thing WWDC. We discuss also new thing with Matt Matsikot for the first episode of season 3 about new things related to Swift concurrency. And thank you also for the Apple newsletter to share the last episode with Matt Matsikot. It was a pleasure to me and also for the community that Apple find that the content shared by Swift Academy, it's good. And also I think people that we invited him, like you, Dave, like Dia, and other people that we name it, give this ability to the podcast to continue. We hope that we keep the same level of developers in the season 3, And thank you, Sol. Thank you for accepting to be with me for this last episode. And
It was an
see you
honor.
soon.
It was
Thank
an
you.
honor.
Thank you,
Thank you very
Dave.
much.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Dave.